Well, Benjamin Creme was born in 1922, and in 1959 he was contacted by one of the masters, ascended masters. They don't really get real specific who actually contacted him first, but what they did is asked him if he wanted to participate in this coming, where he would actually talk about and be kind of like the John the Baptist for the coming Maitreya, as they called him. And he accepted, and in 1975 he started Share International, which is kind of like the mouthpiece for who they call Lord Maitreya. And in 1977, Maitreya actually made, according to them, his physical appearance, where he came from the Himalayas, and supposedly he occupied a body, came in on a plane from the Himalayas, and they even used that whole thing about him coming from the Himalayas in 1977 to say that this fulfills the Bible scriptures where it said he will come in the clouds, which is such a joke. But so Maitreya has really been, or Benjamin Creme has really been, like, again, the kind of like the false version of John the Baptist for Maitreya ever since, really. He's went around, lectured. He lectures at different various occult groups. He lectures at Masonic halls and these types of things, places where he feels comfortable at. And he's been trying to herald in Maitreya for a long time. They've made many predictions where, they said, okay, he's most likely going to appear within this time frame, and most of the time they've just got everything wrong. So they'll say, well, he could appear any moment, but we don't really know when.
The New Age religion, folks, is going to have a worldwide leader, a charismatic political and religious leader that they call Lord Maitreya. At least so far, that's who they call him, or that's what they call him. This individual, as far as I know, has not made his public appearance yet, but the New Agers claim that he is on the earth at the present time. They claim that he came to live with the Asian community in East London, England, in July 1977 by descending from his ancient retreat in the Himalaya mountains along the border of India and Tibet. They further believe that his imminent emergence into full public view is assured. They also claim that this individual is the one that the Christians call Christ, the Jews call the Messiah, the Buddhists call the fifth Buddha, the Hindus call Krishna, and the Muslims called the Imam Mahdi. In other words, all of the major religions of the world are awaiting the arrival of this one individual. And they say that he is on the earth now, patiently waiting for the appointed time to reveal his existence to the peoples of the world. They say that he will apparently assume the leadership of all of these religions, and when he does, he will create a one-world religion. The New Agers have written that in the esoteric tradition, previously defined as being intended for or understood by only a chosen few as an inner group of disciples or initiates, in other words, the esoteric means hidden. They claim that the word Christ is not the name of an individual, but the name of an office or function within the spiritual hierarchy of masters. They claim that the masters are a group of perfected men who have guided human evolution from behind the scenes for centuries, and they believe that this Lord Maitreya is that Christ. Now, Manly P. Hall has written of this individual by identifying him as, quote, the way, the truth, and the life, which coming to every life redeems all who accept it, unquote.
Since Jiddu Krishnamurti, featured in Zeitgeist Addendum, failed as the world teacher responsible for ushering in the Age of Aquarius one-world system, Theosophists, Freemasons, and occultists have been waiting for their world teacher since then. Well, on January 9th, 1959, a student of Alice Bailey and Blavatsky, who was already familiar with the doctrine of the Ascended Masters, Benjamin Creme, would come into contact with powerful forces who would appoint him to introduce Maitreya, the world teacher, to humanity. Creme's first experience is as follows. On January 3rd, 1959, Creme became possessed by an energy, and a message from an outside force said to him, "Go to Blackfriars Bridge, south side, Blackheath side, on January 9th, 9:30 p.m. So on January 9th, 1959, Benjamin Krem followed these instructions and crossed Blackfriars Bridge in London, walking to the south side. There was no one about. It was deserted. There was a car waiting at the far end of the bridge. He walked beside the car and looked inside of it. There were some people in it who he did not know, but one of them was a man who told him he had been receiving messages from the Ascended Masters. From there, Krem started receiving messages again from this force, who he now believed were these Ascended Masters that Theosophy invented. This entity told Krem to pull out his tape recorder. It began giving Krem long dictations, which he repeated into the tape recorder. The entity said, "Now our master Maitreya himself has something important to tell you." Krem then claimed to be overshadowed by Maitreya, this leader of the Ascended Masters. In a sense, he was possessed by Maitreya. Krem claims that the experience was that of total identification with everything and everybody in the world, a kind of universal experience such as he had never felt. He was filled with a foreign tremendous energy. Krem claimed to have seen a vision of himself in the future, as well as Maitreya, the world teacher, who ushers in the Age of Aquarius, one world system. Later he was instructed that he would help introduce Maitreya to the world. Since then, Krem started an organization called Share International. They have a website as well. It is aimed at promoting Maitreya and the teachings of Theosophy and the New Age. Krem admitted that he was influenced by Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey. Quote, "To many today, this awareness includes the recognition of higher states of consciousness attained by those who make up the emerging spiritual kingdom, the masters and initiates of the world. Their existence was first revealed in modern time by H.P. Blavatsky, co-founder of the Theosophical Society, as long ago as 1875. A more detailed communication about the masters and their work was given by Alice A. Bailey between 1919 and 1949. In her book The Externalization of the Hierarchy, she revealed the existence of a planned return to physical plane work and activity by this group of enlightened men, which return, I submit, has already begun."
I think that what Blavatsky wrote down, even by her own admission, was not written by an ascended master, and I don't think that ascended masters exist. She was being deceived. Regardless of what we think, we have to at least believe her and the others involved in the high levels of the Theosophic movement, that what they got, the core levels, their secret doctrine, was given to them by off-world entities. The research becomes, who are these off-world entities? And this is the other part of that research. Is what those entities said true or not? I understand that it's very poetic. It's very easy and seductive to believe, because when you read some of her stuff or some of the other stuff that's written directly from demonic entities, it's extremely seductive. We must understand that these beings are thousands of years older than us, and they're very smart. We're no match for them. The smartest of us are no match for the intellect of them, but their desire is to deceive us. So we are outmatched in this regard. So that's why it's seductive when we read it.
The most current thing that they're doing right now has been since last December, this supposed star sign, which is really, again, they just try to knock off from the Bible as much as they possibly can. This is like a knockoff of the Star of Bethlehem in the Bible. And in that, they're saying that there's going to be these, what they call star-like luminaries in the sky. 4 of them that are in different quadrants of the earth. They're 5 times the size of a football field, according to them. And people are seeing these things, and they've got a whole, up on shareinternational.org, they've got a whole section devoted to this, where people are sending in pictures, there's stars, and what they are, spaceships. That's what they're admitting to at this point. And more people are seeing them, but evidently this is going to be the thing that really, really heralds in Maitreya, up until they have the day of declaration when he makes his public emergence.
And this is supposed to be on the major media?
Yes. When he makes his big debut, what they've said is they've already secured an interview with a major U.S. TV network, and then one in Japan, I believe, as well. So during this time, he's going to, the day of declaration, Supposedly he's going to basically telepathically communicate with masses and masses of people. They supposedly will hear them in their own language. They'll be able to comprehend him. Supposedly they'll feel this infinite love. And there will be many also supposed miraculous healings taking place around the world at the same time. And most likely, this day of declaration will come on the heels of some or multiple cataclysmic events, most likely the first thing being an economic meltdown, which is what he's predicted way back from the 90s.
And what does Maitreya promise? What does he want to achieve? What are his goals?
Well, you know, if you look at the word Share International, which is the name of the site, you know, if you read what he says, he wants the world resource sharing of the world. He doesn't want there to be any, supposedly, any inequalities of the world. You know, you look at what he says that he is. He says that he is the Christ that the Christians are expecting, the Messiah the Jews are expecting, the fifth Buddha the Buddhists are expecting, Krishna the Hindus are expecting, and Imam Mahdi that the Muslims. So he's kind of everything rolled up into one. He's like the total package. He's going to give and be able to unite and put all of the various and different religious systems, the major religious systems, all on the same page. And the Bible says that when the Antichrist comes, he's going to come with all lying power, signs, and wonders. And he's going to deceive the whole world by which the miracles that he's going to do. So he's taking credit for every single miracle that's going on right now, whether it's a Marian apparition, which would be to him the ascended Master Mary, because he's got a whole band of masters that he's going to be coming with. And so he's taking credit for everything. Every miracle that you're seeing going on in the world right now, whether it's a Catholic miracle, whether it's some type of energizing of the water, whether it's some bleeding statue, whether it's, you know, some Hindu miracle, crosses of light, they've seen those in various churches. He's taking credit for all of that. And I think what we're going to see and what he says we're going to see, in fact, I just read this in their last report, Benjamin Kremitz said also with the UFO sightings, he says they're going to increase up until the time when he makes his emergence. And he's going to come on the scene. He's going to be able to explain all of this and try to put everybody on the same page.
My personal belief is that the Antichrist, or the world teacher, will seem to actually be Christ, in the sense that he will seem to destroy some old system and some old bad leader. And I think that it will somehow be tied to, I don't know, this is my guess, but it will somehow be tied to some sort of fake or alien invasion or presence of some sort. I don't know if Maitreya fits all those characteristics, but I wouldn't doubt it for 1 minute if he was. My personal opinion is that Krim is somebody who is being talked to by entities and is doing what he's told to be doing. But you have to understand, a lot of times with people that are channeling entities like that, they oftentimes do and say things that don't come true, because the demons themselves don't know when. They're still on a timeline that they can't tell when something's going to happen. So they're always keeping something ready to happen in case when they finally can. So in the case of that, like if you look at the Blossom Goodchild thing and these ideas that were consistently put out by channeled entities and things, it never came to pass because they don't have control over the timeline. They just have to always be ready.
According to Share International and the Swahili edition of the Kenya Times, Maitreya made an appearance June 11, 1988, to a local congregation in Nairobi, Kenya. The editor of the Swahili edition of the Kenya Times, a veteran journalist named Job Matungi, witnessed the event and took some pictures. A summary of his article as it appeared in his newspaper is as follows, quote, "The tall figure of a barefooted, white-robed and bearded man appeared from nowhere and stood in the middle of the crowd. He was walking slowly towards the new church building, away from the tent. Mary walked with him side by side. I stared at the stranger without blinking, wafted on top of his turbaned head, his feet, and his entire body. In clear Swahili, which had no traces of accent, the strange man announced that the people of Kenya were blessed, especially those who had gathered at the venue that afternoon. We are nearing the time of the reign of heaven, but before that I shall come back and bring a bucket full of blessings for all of you, the man said. A bucketful of blessings is a reference to the astrological symbol for the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is depicted as a man carrying a pitcher of water in the zodiac. But continuing with the article, quote, "It took the crowd nearly 20 minutes to recover after the man left the meeting in a car belonging to a Mr. Gurnam Singh, who offered to give him a lift. But it will probably take Mr. Singh his lifetime to recover from the shock he got 2 minutes later. On reaching the bus terminus, the man informed Mr. Singh to stop the car. On getting out, he walked a few paces beside the road and simply vanished into thin air." New Age expert and attorney Constance Cumby, author of The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, had stumbled onto this Maitreya figure in her research in the 80s. Her book, published in 1983, was the first book to give a full expose on Maitreya and Benjamin Creme. On page 21, she notes a Denver Post interview conducted by Jack Kissling speaking to Benjamin Creme, quote, "Won't the advent of a single world religion annoy the hierarchies of all the current Orthodox religions?" I asked. "More than that," he said with a smile. "They will be shocked. I dare say they will be among the last to accept the Christ." But according to Kissling, Creme said confidently, "It will come because it must. We will begin to live," he said, "as potential gods," unquote. Constance Cumby also notes that Creme is a Luciferian by citing a WLAC radio interview, quote, "In a November 9, 1982 radio interview over WLAC, Nashville, Benjamin Creme told the entire Bible Belt that Lucifer came to planet Earth from planet Venus 18.5 million years ago and made the supreme sacrifice for us," unquote. Constance Cumby had direct contact with Benjamin Creme face-to-face in Detroit, Michigan. "I had the opportunity to meet this brave woman, and she showed me the place in which she had attended a lecture by Benjamin Creme.
Spoke to a packed crowd November 4th, 1981, and Bread for the World was out there, had tables, Oxfam, every group you could think of was sitting out there. They were passing out brochures. The brochure is reproduced in both of my books. Benjamin Creme came in. He gave some kind of a hand signal that looked something like that, and I thought at first he was waving to somebody, but the crowd appeared to flip into a trance. And then he started speaking, and he was rotating his head. I can't even come close to, it was as close to a 180-degree spin of a head as I've ever seen. How his head didn't snap off, I'll never know. And then he started talking and laying out what they were doing, and the crowd was thoroughly under several degrees of hypnosis. I knew many people in that crowd from political circles and social circles in Detroit for many years, and I talked to some of them, and the common denominator was they had all been through one kind of mind control course or another, one type of New Age class or another. I talked to a fellow behind me, Al Banks, and I said, he was a film producer doing much of what you're doing now. And I said, "Al, I know what I'm doing here tonight. What are you doing here?" And he said, "Because, Connie," he said, "I'm taking a course in miracles at Unity." He said, "I've joined Unity. We're all required to take a spiritual growth class. I've taken a course in miracles. It was a class requirement that we be here tonight." And then he said, "You know, Connie, I would have thought a progressive person like you would have joined Unity a long time ago." Well, then I started explaining to him exactly why I haven't. And he the glaze snapped off his eyes for a little bit. He thanked me for telling him. And then Creme came in and started doing his thing. And at the end of the evening, they had been promised an appearance by Maitreya, the Christ, channeled through Benjamin Creme himself, that Maitreya would speak through Benjamin Creme. And Benjamin Creme asked everybody to join in the recitation of the Great Invocation. I told the woman standing next to me, "I will not say the Great Invocation with you. I will say my own prayer." and she was a nice little prim, proper looking black lady. Could have been active in any Black Baptist church in Detroit from her appearance. And she said, "No, that's all right, honey. We all have our own paths to God." I said, "The reason I will not say the great invocation with you, the scriptures clearly said that the Antichrist would come denying that Jesus was the Christ." I said, "Benjamin Creme has denied it all evening and said Jesus was not the Christ and this Maitreya was." And the woman said what Benjamin Creme had said. She said, "There's been many Christs." I said, "There's been one, and his name is Jesus." And people turned from rows around and looked at me like I was crazy. And so then Benjamin Creme came in, and he started the nearly close to 180-degree spin of his neck again. And the crowd's hypnotic trance appeared to deepen, and he started out from the point of light within the mind of God, may light spring forth ever. And I went nice and clear, and I'll tell you, the acoustics in that building are wonderful. I said, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done." And I did that each and every stanza. And they got down to the last part, said, "May light and love and power fulfill thee plan on earth, and may it seal the door where evil dwells." And I said nice and loud and clear, I said, "May Jesus Christ return to earth and end the evil present in this room tonight." Well, the funniest thing happened, or may I say it did not happen. Benjamin Creme stood there. He waited, and he waited. He clearly was watching for something to come over him. And it didn't happen. And he finally said to the crowd, he said, "That will be all. You are dismissed." And of course everybody was extremely disappointed. And we went to the door, and I went walking out. I had brought some co-spies with me. They were kind of chickening out at that point and waiting for me. They were afraid of being ripped limb to limb. And I stood down there, and a number of those people knew me, and they were just furious with me. And I stood there calm, cool, and collected, and I said, "Well," I said, "if you're Maitreya the Christ, Betreya the Christ, or whatever his name's supposed to be, where everything he's cracked up to be, one lousy Christian in there saying the Lord's Prayer shouldn't have stopped him." And Benjamin Creme has never come back to Detroit, although that was probably the most successful night financially and crowd-wise that he'd had in the United States.
The following is a video taken in Iraq at a Shia Muslim festival. Share International and Benjamin Creme have put out that this is indeed an appearance of Maitreya, the supposed world teacher for the age of Aquarius, one world government. Commenting on this video, Share International reports, quote, "Imam Mahdi, unexpected appearance," proclaims the title of a video posted on YouTube. A miraculous figure of glowing brilliant white light appeared on a video filmed in Karbala, Iraq, on the night of Ashura, 6 January 2008. This Shia Muslim ceremony commemorates the martyrdom of the grandson of the Prophet, Hussein, whose tomb is in Karbala. Benjamin Creme's master confirms that the light figure is Maitreya, Imam Mahdi to the Muslims, and that his dance-like movements with a sword remind us of his coming with the sword of cleavage. Could this be real, or is it a hoax? Is Maitreya real, or is he a hoax? Whatever the case may be, it turns out that it is not only New Agers and occultists who believe in this Maitreya, but politicians, presidents, and elitists also follow Maitreya. Wayne Peterson, a retired American diplomat and admitted supporter of Maitreya with connections to the Pentagon and the United Nations, stated the following about Mikhail Gorbachev and the White House in a Vision magazine interview, June 20th, 2000. Reporter Kendall Klug asks, "I believe Mikhail Gorbachev has publicly stated his belief of the existence of Maitreya. Do you know if this is true?" Wayne Peterson answers, "I have one little story I could tell you about Gorbachev. A friend of mine who has worked with the World Bank went to the Heads of State conference in Europe and gave a speech where he borrowed many of Maitreya's ideas for economic reform out of a book by Benjamin Creme that I had given him. He told me that he had read the book on his flight to Europe and realized that his keynote address to these world officials, especially presidents and prime ministers, it was a very high-level meeting, was going to be very boring, with many having heard similar sentiments over and over. So he thought he would throw in some of Maitreya's ideas into the speech. The country he was in had a reigning monarch who invited him to lunch the next day. When he showed up for lunch, there were 16 to 20 people there, including Mr. Gorbachev. The monarch of this country said to my friend, "I suppose you're wondering why we invited you here today. Well, we are all curious about where you got those ideas for your speech, which you presented yesterday." He said that my friend Wayne gave me a book written by Benjamin Creme about Maitreya's mission. Immediately they nodded their heads. "We thought so," was the apparent response. "That's why we invited you here. We all know of Maitreya, and we're doing what we can for him. But we are not able to say anything publicly because we are world leaders. We each have our own public to deal with." Only one person there stood up and said that they could use his name to legitimize these sightings, and that was Mikhail Gorbachev. He was the only man in the room who would say, "Use my name if you want." The reporter asks, "Do you think President Clinton has had an experience with Maitreya?" Wayne Peterson: "I don't know if President Clinton has. I believe that former President Bush has. We used to have transmission meditation groups that Maitreya had asked us to do around Washington, D.C. People who were interested in Maitreya and the reappearance story would get together once a week in Georgetown, in the home of President Bush's main counselor at the White House. President Bush came over to this house for dinner one night, and the hostess was in the dining room as President Bush asked her, 'What do you think? I'm running against Clinton in this election. Am I going to win?' She said, 'No, Mr. President, you are not. Maitreya has already said that you are going to lose to Clinton.' Bush never challenged her, but merely said, 'Yeah.' He didn't ask who Maitreya was. He was very quiet, and then said, 'I think I've got to go now.' Benjamin Creme has said many times that he had heard from one of Maitreya's associates that Maitreya had appeared to Bush and that they had a discussion in the White House. So that incident with my meditation group seemed to confirm that Bush did in fact know of Maitreya. I do know people in the White House have been visited by Maitreya many times, and the people I'm talking I've seen on the front page of the Washington Post, standing next to the president." In a December 19, 2008 London Telegraph article, major media organization, Mick Brown praises Maitreya and Benjamin Creme, stating, quote, "This week has come encouraging news for anyone with an interest in signs and wonders, or desperate for a chink of light in the prevailing gloom, which probably means most of us. A savior is at hand."
В другом направлении, к новому мировому порядку.
I think
Новой
even
цивилизации.
that does not describe why the world has changed so much and why the world has turned so much toward a new world order and a new kind of civilization.
Maitreya is one of the main theosophy in Maitreya. The whole UN movement, the whole Lucius Trust movement, world goodwill, they're going out of their way to try to discredit it and say, well, you know, Jesus, all he really was a disciple of Maitreya. He's still a disciple of Maitreya. Maitreya's over him, and Jesus, they believe what happened is Jesus heralded in the age of Pisces. Now what we're going to be doing is now we need to herald in the age of Aquarius. This is where the New World Order comes in, and this is what Maitreya is going to bring. So we're going to de-emphasize Jesus, and